Episodes 7 and 8 of X-Men 97 Season 2 can best be described, in my opinion, as follows. It's a few good toppings in a very, very messy sandwich. And for those only interested in the Storm side of things, check the description for a timestamp, cause she gets her own section this time. Episode 7, Strange Land Savage Heart, starts off with a flashback to the Genosha Massacre. We see Colossus and his sister Magic intervening to try and keep people safe and attacking the Sentinels. Magic ends up sacrificing her life for some reason. We see her portaling people to safety. Why didn't she just portal herself away? Or use any of her other powers? Are her legs broken?
I see piss coming, I moved. She saw piss coming, she stayed.
Yeah, she did.
They clearly only wrote this scene to give Colossus a reason to join up with the Acolytes later on. Hell, she had a better cameo in Season 1 when Morph turned into her. At least then we got to see her regular and her Darkchild form. Back in the present, everyone's favorite anti-mutant bigot Graydon Creed is running for president. The prejudice, pomp, and circumstance is stopped by the Acolytes of Magneto. They make short work of Creed's security detail and take him hostage.
4,621 seconds.
That's how long it took for Genosha to be reduced to ashes. And humanity's response is to raise up men like this. Men who paint targets on mutant kind's backs while we mourn our lost.
On one hand, I welcome the inclusion of a mutant extremist group. It's helping to keep things perfectly balanced, you could say. And I love how he straight up calls X-Factor race traitors. My only problem here is, why episode 7 out of 9? This episode has nothing to do with Apocalypse or the time-traveling shenanigans. And we'll get into the other good things this episode offers, but this isn't like the animated series where we had 20 episodes per season. We don't even get 10! In my opinion, if you're gonna commit to these types of seasons, you need to keep it tight and right. In any case, Exodus issues an ultimatum. Release the mutant prisoners held in X-Factor's facility, or Graydon Creed will be assassinated. Valerie Cooper warns the X-Men, X-Corp not to interfere. But obviously they're going to. Especially since Creed's brother and half-sister are also on the team. The X-Men head over to the Savage Land to extract Creed, and on the way everyone reminisces about how wild it is that this place even exists. They also reference a couple moments from the OG series, like back when Mr. Sinister used this as his base. And this may be a hot take, but I'm starting to get tired of the self-referential nature of this show. At some point the show will have to stand on its own. But speaking of callbacks to the OG series, we're in the Savage Land. Where's Storm? Out of all the episodes to cut Storm out, why this one? She had two of her best episodes in the Savage Land. The one where Storm gets brainwashed by the evil ancient spirit Garrock and starts using her powers without restraint. How would Storm feel coming back to the Savage Land after all these years?
Who gives a shit?
Anyway, the X-Jet gets blown out of the sky because, of course it's X-Men 97, but they're relieved to see Colossus among the welcome committee. He may be an antagonist, but he'll always be their friend. But to make matters worse, the X-Men suddenly can't use their powers, all thanks to the power jamming beacon found within the Savage Land. Put a pin in that because it will be relevant later. Also, this section of the episode establishes a thing between Polaris and Bishop. They're clearly hot in the ass for each other now. I don't hate this pairing, but it just comes out of nowhere. While giving the X-Men a tour of the Acolyte base, Colossus explains how Exodus found him after Magic's death, and gave him new purpose by welcoming him into the fold. I do like how Colossus doesn't just go full villain. He may join the quote-unquote bad guys, but he's doing it for an understandable reason. And in the real world, good people join bad organizations for understandable reasons all the time. But here is something I can't understand. Why does this monument to Genoshan victims have Magneto way up there and Gambit way down there? Obviously Magneto deserves his spot, but Gambit actually stopped the massacre. No, I'm sorry. He's not just another mutant who died. His name is Gambit. Remember it. Then the X-Men shoot over to Graydon Creed's cell. I love the moment where Kurt and Graydon both recite the same Bible verse. It shows that even brothers who are sworn enemies for life can share a common bond. And it's little moments like that that keep me from outright hating the show even when it does some stupid shit. Then Nightcrawler throws down the gauntlet to Exodus, because Graydon hasn't had so much as a trial. But Colossus counters Kurt's moral dilemma with a question of his own. Why should we give this man a trial when humans haven't given him a trial? He's committed sin after sin after sin against mutant kind, and since Exodus is always looking for new members, Kurt ups the ante. He proposes a trial, with Exodus as the prosecution, himself as defense, and Colossus presiding as the judge. And if Colossus finds Creed guilty, not only will Kurt let him kill him, he'll join the Acolytes himself.
You suggest a trial here in the savage land? To prove what?
Whether the soul of my brother is beyond all hope of redemption.
While they're setting up for the trial, Bishop and Polaris go on a side mission to take out that power dampening tower, because Bishop is getting it worse than everybody else. See, he was in the middle of absorbing a bunch of energy when they got hit with the depowering wave, and since his powers are deactivated, he's stuck with all that excess energy inside. So if they don't turn his powers back on quick, he's going to explode. Back at the Acolyte base, the trial goes underway. Exodus waxes on about how Graydon's an unrepentant anti-mutant bigot who's never gonna change. But for the defense, Nightcrawler puts Graydon on the stand and questions him about his parents. Neither Nightcrawler nor Graydon were loved by Mystique, but Graydon also had the extra helping hand of abuse from Victor Creed, Sabretooth, his father. That little gnarly scar on the side of his face comes from Sabretooth expressing his anger over Graydon not having any powers.
Every night, I reminded myself, make it to 13. I'd get powers like he did. Then I could hunt like him.
But you were human, and so he abandoned you, just like our mother did.
Now, I've seen a lot of people online completely throw this episode away just for this scene alone. I'm always astounded to see how many fans hate when the X-Men do this. They're gonna show compassion to people who don't deserve it. It's just like during Morewa's Storm run when people were mad that she was helping out Orcus agents. Attorney Kurt Wagner makes the root of Creed's hate plain. That hate got compounded and now it defines him. Even in the face of death, he can't let it go. Pretty moving speech, even Colossus looks convinced. And when Exodus notices, he writes him off as a traitor. Trial's off, Creed and Colossus have to die. Thankfully, the B-plot wraps up and the power dampener tower is destroyed. Just in time for a good old battle royale. And I gotta say, Kurt shows up and shows out. He 1v1s Exodus, and it's teleporter versus teleporter, sword wielder versus sword wielder. And you know our boy Kurt's gonna come out on top.
You are as you were born, Exodus. A vain soul clamoring for his 15 minutes of faith. Yield!
But your boy Graydon ain't having it. He tries to take Nightcrawler hostage, but then Kurt shows him what it looks like when he starts operating on Demon Time. Bamfs him all the way to the Arctic, and damn near chokes him to death with his tail while telling him how big a piece of shit he is. And for the second time this season, a character who's usually very compassionate and forgiving reads someone to filth. He spares him only because of the confounding grace of God, leaving him to his own fate in the snow, where he's soon picked up by X-Factor. After everything goes down, Colossus is understandably disillusioned with his fearless leader, so he decides to room it up with the X-Men for a while. And before they enter the mansion, Kurt asks Peter whether or not he would have found Creed guilty. And he says he was unconvinced by Kurt's argument, but Illyana would have bought it. And that's a good enough consolation prize for our blue fuzzy elf. Hard cut to Athens, Greece, where X-Force finally hunts down Apocalypse, or so they think, because Apocalypse is already dead. And near his severely shriveled up corpse is a very familiar playing card with singed edges. And that leads directly into episode 8, The Dead Man's Hand, which starts with a dream sequence, seeing Rogue and Gambit dance back at the ball at Genosha. But their waltz is interrupted when Gambit assumes his Horsemen of Death form, right before he makes Rogue explode. She wakes up in a cold sweat and tries to forget about her nightmare, joining the other X-Men for a card game. Then the sensors go off as an unidentified aircraft enters Genoshan airspace. The old bomber lands and X-Force walks out, with Apocalypse's corpse in tow. Rogue doesn't know how to take the news that Gambit killed Apocalypse. But she has no time to process that because X-Force wants the X-Men's help in tracking Remy down. And she already knows how X-Force gets down, so she's not signing up for that. Jubilee reassures Rogue that they're not gonna kill Gambit, they just want to undo what Apocalypse did to him. And since Rogue was able to return Archangel back to normal back in the OG series, the same should be true for Gambit. The X-Men agree to help on one condition, that this remains a rescue mission. Cable gives his word that they will not use lethal force. And if you believe that, I got a bridge in San Francisco to sell you. We get more heart-to-heart moments between Rogue and Nightcrawler, and I do really like how much we see them together this season.
My daddy used to say a miracle is just wrapping paper for the next tragedy.
Rogue, this is not the time for your colorful lamentations. Remy is back.
I know, Kurt, I know. And I'm afraid of what that means.
But this scene of brotherly comfort is cut by Chuck using Cerebra to locate Gambit. And when he does, Gambit shows him what his demon time looks like, overloading Chuck with his horseman energy. And he did that psychically. But in any case, they have located Gambit at least. He's gone back home to Baton Rouge, where he reunites with the Thieves Guild and the Assassins Guild. After flaunting his new powers for a second, he turns both teams into his own horsemen, then sets eyes on the stained glass window of External. I love how we're finally seeing Gambit in action, but again, why did it take the second to last episode of Season 2 for us to see a character who we knew was coming from Season 1? Like, if this had been episode 4 or 5, I'd be all in. But now, X-Men 97 is playing in my face and I don't like it. And when you see how utterly broken Gambit is in this episode, you will be as mad as I am. We cut back to the X-Force jet, and if you were paying attention in episode 7, you already know what's coming. Jubilee tries to assuage Rogue's very complicated feelings about this mission, while Jean and Cyclops try to have some one-on-one time with Cable. But all of that's interrupted when Jean senses a presence approaching. Several presences. Enter Gambit and his Horsemen Guild as they commence their attack on the Joint X teams. In the mix, Rogue calls out to Gambit and removes one glove as she prepares to attempt a redemption act. He emerges from the shadows, voice bellowing out, and immediately tears fall from Rogue's eyes. But when she lays a hand on his cheek, nothing happens. But Gambit's not upset by the attempt. In fact, this is just what he wanted. He puts her asleep and escapes with her in tow. Well, her and Nightcrawler, because of course he was gonna try and protect his sister. Not that it did him any good, because Gambit's cards are heat sinking now. So he dips out with Rogue and a new horseman, leaving the X-Force jet to plummet to the ground. But luckily we have 3 telepaths/telekinetics on board, and their mental heavy lifting saves the day. I am curious though why they needed to work together. Cable or Jean Grey enough could have been enough to lift the plane.
Just keep going, just keep going.
We cut to the X-Mansion where Storm and the B-Team, I guess, are watching events unfold on the news. And Storm is looking so right in this outfit. I need behind the scenes character art of this shit now. Anyway, she rallies the team, telling them they're gonna go join the rest. I have several thoughts about this scene that I will expound on in the Storm section because, yay, Storm's back. But also,
What?
Rogue awakens in Gambit's family home, where she's treated to dinner alongside the Horsemen of Death. But she still can't get over how surreal all this is. But to quote Gambit,
I ain't crawled out of my grave to repeat regrets.
So instead of holding his cards close to his chest, he's laying them all out on the table. He starts off by giving Rogue a piece of Apocalypse's backstory, and now we finally see how koriand'r became External. As I predicted, the two got together back in ancient Egypt, right after that whole pesky murdering Magneto thing. And she convinced him to give her part of his power. But then she just up and leaves him. So Apocalypse got ghosted by a vengeful priestess who got back at him for destroying her city.
Okay.
I guess she's gonna wait for America to be founded so she can become the patron goddess of the Thieves and Assassins Guild. Speaking of which, it's ritual time. External is summoned by the guilds, and Gambit wastes no time revealing his sinister plot. Using his newfound horseman powers, he stabs her in the chest with his scythe. seemingly killing her on the spot and claiming her orb of immortality for himself. All while Rogue is adorned in a wonderfully gothic wedding outfit. And now that Gambit has his wedding ring, all that's left is an I do. But this match made in hell is interrupted by the joint X-Men teams. They engage with Gambit's Horsemen, and we get another battle royale. And again, Nightcrawler is the star of the show, only he's a bad guy this time. The POV bamfs are peak, and I still think I liked season 1's better, but this one is a very close second. I mean, he putting the paws on everybody. Part of it is contrivance, this is an X-Men episode after all, but he's one of those characters who's always an edge away from just royally fucking everybody up. And if it weren't for his compassion and faith, this man would have a kill list that would rival Logan's. One time when he was fighting Apocalypse, he teleported his eyes away. Once the X teams are down, Gambit takes this opportunity to make Rogue's decision for her, placing the orb on her chest and infusing her with the external's powers. Anyway, Chuck's like, enough of all this fisticuff shit, and they have a duel on the psychic plane.
As Jean once used the power of the Phoenix to bind the M'Kron crystal, I now bind you with the power of...
Chuck gains the upper hand and finds Gambit's true soul inside of Horseman Gambit's essence. Starts extracting him before the Big A himself wakes up as well. Yep, it was Apocalypse the whole time, just biding his time in Remy's soul as another form of his ultimate evolution. And now he plans on claiming Gambit and Charles, but a certain Southern Belle just won't have it. She uses her newfound powers to join the psychic fray and prise Gambit and Chuck out of Apocalypse's clutches. Then she restores Gambit's soul to its true form, leading Gambit to absorb Apocalypse. Rogue wakes up to find Gambit is back to his normal self, and his vitals are faint but present. But that might not last for long, cause Cable has him in his sights, because of course he does. Cable was never gonna let this man live. He knew Apocalypse was still alive. He knew he was just waiting for his moment. But thankfully Jean gets in the way, and Cable isn't that much of a hard ass that he would shoot his own mom. So this is where we are going into episode 9. An unconscious Gambit housing Apocalypse's essence, and a pissed off Cable who didn't get his kill. Luckily for him, there are some government mutant toadies who have absolutely no problem with killing Gambit. So it looks like it'll be X-Men versus X-Force / X-Factor. And now for the part of the video many of you have been waiting for, the Storm section. I won't belabor this point again, but it still blows me how we didn't have Storm going to Savage Land. And episode 8 isn't much better. The electrified tidal wave was pretty cool, and these guys would all be dead as hell if they were still normal humans. But that's it. Storm gets benched after one attack. And it's just a reminder of how dirty Storm gets done in both seasons of this show. In the original animated series, her powers were nerfed compared to the comics, but she was at least useful. In most episodes, she had something to contribute either to the plot, the fight scenes, or to the development of other characters. And she had plenty of development herself. She really just stood around for most of this episode. I mean, look at this part when Cable starts lining up his sights on Gambit. Why is she just standing in the middle of these little wing shards from Archangel? She doesn't even need lethal force to disarm Cable. No ice to freeze his hand before he can fire. No gust of wind to disorient him. Nothing. Like I said, I expect some level of plot convenience. You're never gonna get a fight where everyone uses their powers optimally. But this is comical. It makes Storm look incompetent. And what's worse, we have zero introspection from Storm. None of her thoughts or feelings about Gambit coming back to life at all. Just like we didn't hear Storm's feelings regarding his sacrifice in season 1. And as close as she is with Gambit, this is actually criminal. And no, before some people say in the comments, I'm not asking for Storm to headline this or every single episode. Most Storm fans don't want Storm to dominate every X-Men everything ever. We want her to matter to the narrative, to the conflict, and to the team she's called home for most of her adult life. Shit, at least in season 1 she had an arc, rushed and contrived as it was. But in my opinion, this is just one example of how cast bloat is ruining this show. Storm, one of the main X-Men, has to take a backseat to new characters who probably won't even be in next season, let alone have any focus. I mean shit, Storm and Jean ain't getting much better treatment, but at least they get a couple intimate moments with Cable. And Rogue, this is the most Rogue has done all season. And with only one episode left this season, I don't see it getting better at all. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Comment below and let me know what you felt about these 2 episodes. And then click this video right here to get more Weather Witch goddessness in your life. And until next time, you best keep on simping, share.